Hejin pulled her thin jacket closer as she walked through the crowded streets of Seoul. The year was 2157, and the city had changed a lot. Tall buildings with strange shapes reached up into the cloudy sky. Flying cars moved between them like busy insects. She was 16 years old, small for her age and very hungry. Her black hair was messy, and her clothes were old and dirty. But her eyes were bright and clever as she watched the people walking past her. Then she saw him. He was impossible to miss. Big Shaq, the alien ambassador from Centauri, was walking down the street. He was 9 feet tall with blue skin that seemed to shine in the morning light. His long arms nearly reached his knees, and his head was larger than a human's, with 4 small horns that curved backward. He wore what looked like a fancy business suit, but it was made of a strange material that changed colors slightly as he moved. Hejin watched as humans moved out of his way. Some stared, while others pretended not to notice him. 2 robot guards floated near him, their silver bodies reflecting the neon signs from nearby shops. She knew this was her chance. Taking a deep breath, Hejin stepped forward. "Excuse me, Ambassador," she said in a clear voice. Her stomach felt tight with fear, but she kept walking toward him. The robot guards turned to look at her. Red lights blinked on their sides. "Halt, please maintain a safe distance," one of them said in a flat voice. But something strange happened. As Hejin got closer to the robots, their lights flickered. Their voices became confused, making strange sounds. Hejin felt a familiar tingling in her head, like when she used to play with broken computers she found in the trash. Big Shaq stopped walking. His large purple eyes looked down at her with curiosity. "Your machines are malfunctioning," he said. His voice was deep and smooth, with a slight echo that made it sound like 2 people talking at once. "That is unusual." Hejin knew she had only seconds before his guards might push her away. "Please, I need help," she said quickly. "Something is wrong with me. When I'm near computers or machines, they act strange. It's getting worse. Last week, I made a whole store's systems crash just by walking past. I don't know what to do." The alien ambassador studied her for a long moment. His eyes seemed to look right through her. Hejin noticed that his suit's color was changing more quickly now, shifting from dark blue to purple and back. "What is your name, child?" he asked. "Hejin," she answered. Her voice shook a little. Big Shaq raised one of his large 4-fingered hands. The robot guards moved back. "You are correct. Something is indeed different about you." He looked around at the crowded street. "This is not a good place to talk. Would you feel safe coming to my embassy? We can discuss your situation there." Hejin knew she should be scared. Following a strange alien to his embassy didn't seem smart, but she had nowhere else to go, and the weird feeling in her head when she was near technology was getting stronger every day. "Yes," she said, "I'll come." Big Shaq nodded and spoke into a small device on his wrist. A large black vehicle appeared from between the buildings and landed softly next to them. Its door opened without a sound. As Hejin stepped toward the vehicle, she had no idea that this moment would change not just her life, but the relationship between humans and aliens forever. The Centaurian embassy was different from any building Hejin had ever seen. Its walls curved like waves, and soft lights pulsed through them in gentle patterns. As she walked next to Big Shaq, she noticed that none of the doors had handles. They simply opened when he got close. "Please, sit," Big Shaq said, leading her into a room with strange, cushioned chairs that adjusted themselves to fit her small human body. The room had no corners. Everything was round and smooth. A human man in a neat black suit walked in. He looked about 30 years old and had kind eyes. "Ambassador, the medical scanner is ready," he said, bowing slightly. "Thank you, Jaiho," Big Shaq replied. He turned to Hejin. "This is Lee Jaiho, my assistant. He helps me understand human customs better." Hejin nodded at Jaiho, but kept her eyes on the medical scanner. It was a tall, silver machine with arms that held different kinds of lights and sensors. As soon as she looked at it, the machine's screens started to flicker. "Interesting," Big Shaq said. He walked to a computer panel on the wall. "Most human technology doesn't work well with our Centaurian systems. The differences in how they process information are too great. But you..." He pressed some buttons, and holographic screens appeared in the air. He-Jin gasped as the holograms sparked and changed color when she looked at them. Numbers and strange symbols danced across the screens. "Just as I thought," Big Shaq said. His purple eyes were wide with surprise. "Your brain is processing both human and Centaurian digital signals at the same time. This should not be possible." Jaiho stepped closer, looking amazed. "How long has this been happening?" he asked He-Jin. "I first noticed it 3 years ago," she said quietly. "I could turn broken phones on just by holding them. Then it got stronger. Now computers go crazy when I'm near them." She looked down at her hands. "Last month, I made an entire bank's systems crash. People were angry. I had to run away." Big Shaq touched some more buttons, and a 3D image of He-Jin's brain appeared in the air. Parts of it were glowing in ways that human brains usually didn't. "Your neural patterns are unique," he said. "They show signs of both human and Centaurian characteristics. This explains why you can interact with both types of technology." He paused, looking troubled. "But it also raises many questions. This kind of neural structure could only come from exposure to both Earth and Centaurian energy fields during early development. That should not have been possible." Suddenly, all the screens in the room went dark. Alarms started ringing. "Someone is trying to access our systems," Jaiho said, typing quickly on a tablet. "They're searching for..." "Scanning records." Big Shaq moved quickly for someone so tall. He pressed a button, and metal shutters covered all the windows. "It seems we are not the only ones interested in He-Jin's abilities," he said. "Someone knows she is here." He-Jin felt scared. "Who would be looking for me?" "I don't know," Big Shaq said. "But whoever they are, they have very advanced technology. They breached our outer firewalls in seconds." He looked at He-Jin with concern. "You are not safe out there anymore. Someone knows what you can do, and they want to find you." Jaiho put his hand on He-Jin's shoulder. "Don't worry," he said kindly. "The ambassador has diplomatic immunity. As long as you're here, no one can touch you." He-Jin nodded, but her heart was beating fast. She had come to the embassy hoping to understand why she was different. Instead, she had discovered that her strange ability was more important and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Director Kim Do-young sat at his large desk in the South Korean Extraterrestrial Relations Bureau. His office was on the highest floor of a gleaming tower in Seoul. The walls were made of smart glass that could become clear or dark with a touch. Right now, they were clear, showing the city lights below. He watched a video on his screen. It showed a young girl walking into the Centaurian embassy with Big Shaq. His face grew hard as he watched it again and again. "You're sure about the readings?" he asked the scientist standing in front of his desk. The scientist nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Our sensors detected both human and Centaurian neural patterns from her. She appears to be some kind of hybrid." Director Kim stood up and walked to the window. "After all these years," he said quietly, "we finally found one." He turned back to the scientist. "Send in Team Alpha. I want her brought here immediately." At the Centaurian embassy, He-Jin was eating her first real meal in weeks. The food was strange. Some kind of blue soup that tasted like chicken and vegetables. But she was too hungry to care. Jaiho sat with her while Big Shaq worked on strengthening the embassy's security systems. Suddenly, all the lights in the embassy turned red. A loud alarm started ringing. Multiple vehicles approaching. A computer voice announced, "Armed personnel detected." Big Shaq rushed into the room. "They're here," he said. His blue skin had turned a darker shade, showing his worry. 4 hover cars just landed outside. They're from the Extraterrestrial Relations Bureau." Jaiho looked at the security screens. 12 agents, fully armed. They're demanding we hand over He-Jin. He-Jin's spoon fell from her hand. What do they want with me? Before anyone could answer, a loud voice boomed from outside. This is Director Kim Do-young. We know you're harboring a person of interest. Turn her over immediately, or we'll be forced to enter. Big Shaq's purple eyes narrowed. They cannot enter. This embassy is protected by interstellar law. He looked at He-Jin. But they will try to find another way to get to you. As if to prove his point, all the embassy's systems suddenly went crazy. Screens flashed with warning messages. Doors started opening and closing by themselves. They're hacking our systems, Jai-ho said, typing frantically on his tablet. Very advanced technology, nothing like I've seen before. He-Jin felt that familiar tingling in her head. Without thinking, she reached out and touched Jai-ho's tablet. Immediately, the security system stabilized. The doors stopped moving. How did you do that? Jai-ho asked, staring at her in amazement. I don't know, He-Jin said. I just felt what the systems needed and helped them work together. Big Shaq watched this with great interest. Your ability to bridge our technologies is remarkable. He turned to look at the security screens again. But it also explains why they want you so badly. Think of what they could do with your power. Outside, Director Kim was getting angry. He spoke into his communicator. Bring the neural disruptors. If they won't hand her over, we'll force her out. Inside, Big Shaq made a decision. Jai-ho, prepare the emergency transport. We need to get He-Jin to our secondary location. He looked at the scared girl. I promise you this. They will not take you. Not while I'm here. He-Jin nodded, feeling both frightened and grateful. As Jai-ho led her toward a hidden elevator, she heard the sound of heavy equipment being set up outside. She didn't know what was going to happen next, but she knew one thing. Her life would never be the same again. The emergency transport turned out to be a hidden spacecraft in the embassy's basement. He-Jin had never seen anything like it. The ship was shaped like a teardrop and seemed to glow with a soft blue light. Quickly, Big Shaq said, helping her inside. The ship's interior adjusted itself to fit both his large frame and He-Jin's smaller one. Jai-ho followed them, carrying a bag of supplies. Just as they were closing the door, a loud boom shook the building. Neural disruptors activated, the computer announced. Embassy systems failing. He-Jin felt a sharp pain in her head. The neural disruptors were affecting her too, but differently than they expected. Instead of blocking her abilities, they seemed to make them stronger. All around her, the ship's systems began to light up and respond to her presence. Fascinating, Big Shaq said, watching as the ship's controls activated themselves when He-Jin got near them. You're not just interfacing with our technology, you're improving it. The ship rose silently through a hidden opening in the embassy's roof. Below them, He-Jin could see Director Kim's agents looking up in surprise. Their neural disruptors had no effect on the ship's systems. Where are we going? He-Jin asked as Seoul became smaller beneath them. To our sanctuary facility in the mountains, Jai-ho explained. It's where we study the effects of Centaurian energy fields on Earth's environment. No one knows about it except a few trusted scientists. As they flew, Big Shaq ran several scans on He-Jin. The results made his purple eyes grow wide. The neural disruptors activated something in your brain, he said. Your ability to interface with technology has grown even stronger. He-Jin looked at her hands. She could feel every system in the ship now, like they were extensions of her own body. Why am I like this? She asked quietly. Why can I do these things? Big Shaq shared a concerned look with Jai-ho before answering. Normal humans cannot process Centaurian digital signals. Our brains work too differently. But you, he paused, choosing his words carefully. You must have been exposed to both human and Centaurian energy fields when your brain was still developing. Probably when you were very young. But how is that possible? Jai-ho asked. Centaurian energy technology wasn't allowed on Earth until 5 years ago. Exactly, Big Shaq said grimly. Someone was experimenting with our technology illegally, and I think Director Kim knows who. The ship descended toward a hidden valley in the mountains. A large building that looked like a normal research center sat in the middle of it. But He-jin could sense that it was much more than that. She could feel complex systems running deep underground. As they landed, Ho-jin saw several Centaurian scientists waiting for them. They all had the same blue skin as Big Shaq, but they wore white lab coats instead of suits. "Welcome to the Harmony Research Center," Big Shaq said. "Here we can protect you and help you understand your abilities." He turned to Ho-jin with a serious expression. "But first, we need to find out who did this to you, and why Director Kim wants you so badly." Ho-jin nodded, feeling both scared and hopeful. For the first time in her life, she was somewhere that her strange powers might make sense. As she walked into the research center, she didn't know that she was about to uncover a secret that would change both human and Centaurian society forever. The Harmony Research Center's underground labs were much bigger than they appeared from outside. Ho-jin sat in a comfortable chair while Centaurian doctors examined her with their advanced equipment. Every machine in the room responded to her presence, working better than it ever had before. "These readings are remarkable," one of the Centaurian doctors said. "Her neural patterns match our records of early hybrid experiments, but they're far more advanced." Big Shaq, who had been studying old files on a large screen, suddenly stopped. His blue skin turned slightly darker. "Jai-ho," he called. "Look at this." Jai-ho walked over and read the screen. His face went pale. "Project Rainbow Bridge," he read aloud. "Led by Dr. Park Sun-me. 10 years ago." "Who is Dr. Park?" He-jin asked. She noticed how both men became very quiet. Big Shaq turned to her gently. Dr. Park Sun-me was one of the first human scientists to study Centaurian technology. She was brilliant, but she became obsessed with finding ways to combine human and alien systems. He paused. "She disappeared after an explosion at her private research facility 10 years ago." Ho-jin felt her heart beat faster. 10 years ago. That's when I was 6. That's when I was found wandering near. Her eyes went wide. Near the burned buildings outside the city. Jai-ho quickly typed something into his tablet. "The location matches," he said quietly. The destroyed facility was only a mile from where He-jin was found. Big Shaq pressed more buttons, and a woman's face appeared on the screen. She looked kind, but had intense eyes that seemed to burn with determination. "This is Dr. Park," he said. "She was working on something called the Rainbow Bridge Project. She believed she could change human children so they could use both human and Centaurian technology." "The orphanage," He-jin whispered. "I remember a place before the orphanage. A place with blue lights and humming sounds." She touched her head. There were other children, too. The Centaurian doctor who had been examining Ho-jin spoke up. "Ambassador, we found something else. There are traces of specialized nanobots in her bloodstream. They're designed to help human brain cells process Centaurian energy patterns." "Illegal technology," Big Shaq said grimly. "Dr. Park must have created them in secret. But why? And where did she get the resources for such advanced research?" Just then, all the screens in the room flickered. A message appeared. "System breach, DTTCT'd." "It's Director Kim," Jai-ho said, typing frantically. "He's found us. But there's something else. Look at the attack pattern. This isn't government technology." Big Shaq studied the screen. "No," he said slowly. "This is Dr. Park's work. She's alive, and she's been watching. Director Kim isn't trying to capture He-jin. He's trying to find Dr. Park." He-jin stood up, feeling angry and confused. "So I'm just an experiment. Something Dr. Park created." Big Shaq put his large hand gently on her shoulder. "No," he said firmly. "You are a bridge between two worlds. Dr. Park may have changed you, but she didn't create who you are. Your abilities are part of you now, and how you use them is your choice." Alarms started ringing throughout the facility. On the screens, they could see multiple vehicles approaching. But this time, He-jin wasn't scared. She was ready to face the truth about her past, no matter what it might be. The next morning, every news screen in Seoul showed the same headline: Illegal alien experiments on human children discovered. Director Kim stood before reporters, his face serious as he spoke. "We have proof that Centaurian scientists conducted secret experiments on Earth children," he said. "They created human-alien hybrids without permission. This is a direct violation of our treaties." In the Harmony Research Center, Big Shaq watched the news with growing concern. His purple eyes had turned almost black with worry. "He's twisting the truth," he said to He-jin and Ji-ho. "He's trying to blame us for Dr. Park's actions." Ji-ho was reading messages on his tablet. "It's working," he said sadly. "People are angry. There are protests outside every Centaurian facility on Earth. The Earth Council is demanding answers." He-jin touched one of the computers, and immediately all the screens in the room showed different news channels. She could feel how upset people were. "We have to tell them the truth," she said. "It's not that simple," Big Shaq explained. "If we reveal that Dr. Park did this, we must also explain how she got Centaurian technology in the first place." He looked troubled. "Someone helped her. Someone with access to our most secret research." Suddenly, a new message appeared on all the screens. The face of Dr. Park appeared, looking older than in her old pictures, but still with the same intense eyes. "Hello, He-jin," she said softly. "I see you've grown into your abilities beautifully." Everyone in the room froze. Ji-ho tried to trace the signal, but He-jin could feel that it was coming from many places at once. "Why?" He-jin asked, stepping closer to the screen. "Why did you do this to me?" Dr. Park's face showed sadness. "I wanted to bring our worlds together. Humans and Centaurians think so differently, see technology so differently. I thought if I could create a bridge." She paused. "Director Kim was my partner. He helped me get the technology, but then he wanted to use it to make weapons. I couldn't let that happen." Big Shaq's voice was angry. "You experimented on children." "I gave them a gift," Dr. Park said firmly. "The ability to understand both worlds." "He-jin, you're not just a hybrid. You're the future. You can show everyone that humans and Centaurians can be more than allies. We can evolve together." Director Kim's face appeared on another screen. He looked furious. "Dr. Park, you're revealing classified information. Stop this transmission immediately." "No more secrets," Dr. Park said. She pressed something off-screen, and suddenly all the computers in the room filled with documents, videos, and pictures. "Here's the truth. All of it. What we did, why we did it, and who helped us." The information was spreading everywhere, to news stations, government offices, and public screens. He-jin could feel it flowing through every network, impossible to stop. "Arrest her." Director Kim shouted to someone off-screen. "Shut down those transmissions." But it was too late. The truth was out. As He-jin watched both screens, she knew that nothing would ever be the same between Earth and Centauri. The only question was whether the truth would bring their worlds together or tear them apart. 2 days after Dr. Park's revelation, the Earth Council called an emergency meeting with Centaurian leaders. The meeting room was in a neutral space station orbiting Earth. He-jin had never been in space before, and the sight of her blue planet below made her feel very small. "This is a disaster," one Earth Council member said, glaring at the Centaurian representatives. "Your technology was used to experiment on our children." "We did not authorize this," the Centaurian chief ambassador replied. His skin was a deep blue, almost purple. "Dr. Park stole our research." Director Kim held her. The room erupted in angry voices. He-jin sat between Big Shaq and Ji-ho, watching both sides argue. She could feel the station's systems all around her, humming with energy. An idea began to form in her mind. Director Kim was there too, under guard. He had been arrested after Dr. Park's evidence showed how he had helped steal Centaurian technology. But he still spoke up. "We only did what was necessary," he said. "Humans need to catch up to Centaurian technology. We're falling behind." "Catching up isn't the answer," He-Jin said quietly. Then, louder, "Catching up isn't what we need." Everyone in the room turned to look at her. He-Jin stood up, her heart beating fast, but her voice steady. "May I show you something?" The Earth Council leader nodded. "Proceed, He-Jin." He-Jin walked to the center of the room. She could sense every piece of technology around her, both human and Centaurian. Taking a deep breath, she reached out with her mind. All around the room, screens lit up. The station's lights flickered and then grew brighter. He-Jin brought up images of human and Centaurian code side by side. Through her abilities, she began to merge them. "Look," she said. "Human technology is like building with blocks. Centaurian technology is like weaving with threads. They're different, but they can work together. Like this." She demonstrated by combining the station's human life support systems with Centaurian energy fields. The air in the room became fresher. The artificial gravity became smoother. Everything worked better than before. "I'm not just a hybrid," He-Jin explained. "I'm proof that our technologies can do amazing things together. We don't need to compete. We need to collaborate." Big Shaq stood up. "He-Jin is right. What Dr. Park did was wrong, but she proved something important. Humans and Centaurians can create new technologies together that are better than anything we could make alone." The Earth Council members whispered among themselves. The Centaurian leader's skin changed colors as they discussed the idea. Finally, the Earth Council leader spoke. "What do you propose, He-Jin?" He-Jin looked at all of them. "Let me teach others. Not by changing them like Dr. Park did, but by showing them how to understand both types of technology. We can create schools where humans and Centaurians learn together. We can build a real bridge between our worlds." The room was quiet for a long moment. Then the Centaurian chief ambassador smiled, his skin turning a bright, happy blue. "From the minds of children often comes the greatest wisdom," he said. "I vote yes." One by one, the Earth Council members agreed too. Even Director Kim, watching from his place under guard, looked thoughtful. He-Jin felt tears in her eyes as she realized what was happening. Her difference, the thing that had made her feel like an outsider for so long, was about to change both worlds for the better. 1 year later, He-Jin stood at the front of a large classroom in the new Human Centaurian Educational Center in Seoul. The room was filled with both human and Centaurian students, all eager to learn. Through the large windows, she could see the city's skyline, where human and Centaurian buildings now stood together in harmony. "Today, we'll learn how to create a simple translator that works with both human and Centaurian computers," she said, smiling at her students. At 16, she was the youngest teacher in the center, but no one questioned her knowledge anymore. Big Shaq sat at the back of the classroom, watching proudly. As usual, his suit changed colors to match his happy mood. Next to him, Jeho was taking notes on his tablet, preparing teaching materials for future classes. The door opened, and a group of important visitors walked in. The Earth Council leader and the Centaurian chief ambassador had come to see the program's progress. With them was Dr. Park, now free but working under strict supervision to help develop safe ways to combine human and Centaurian technology. He-Jin demonstrated how to connect the two different types of computers. The students watched in amazement as she helped them understand both systems. She wasn't using her special abilities to do the work for them. Instead, she was teaching them how to build bridges between the technologies themselves. 6 months ago, these students couldn't even turn on a Centaurian computer, Big Shaq told the visitors quietly. Now look at them. On the students' screens, human and Centaurian code work together perfectly. The Earth Council leader nodded in approval. "And there have been no safety problems?" she asked. "None," Jeho answered. "Everything is carefully monitored. We learned from past mistakes. Dr. Park watched He-Jin teach with tears in her eyes. I was wrong to try to force this change, she said softly. The bridge between our worlds had to be built with understanding, not experiments. After class, He-Jin walked through the center's halls. Students of both species talked and laughed together. In the technology labs, human and Centaurian scientists worked side by side, creating new inventions that combined the best of both worlds. She stopped at a window and looked out at the city. Director Kim was in prison now, paying for his crimes. But his dream of humans catching up to Centaurian technology had been replaced by something better. Humans and Centaurians moving forward together. Big Shaq joined her at the window. The first group of students graduates next month, he said. Many of them already have jobs waiting in combined human-Centaurian technology companies. And more schools like this are opening around the world, Jai-Ho added, walking up with his tablet. Your idea is spreading, He-Jin. He-Jin smiled as she felt the building's systems humming around her, human and Centaurian technology, working in perfect harmony. She wasn't just the homeless girl who had begged an alien for help anymore. She had found her purpose, being a bridge between two worlds. We're just getting started, she said, watching as a group of human and Centaurian children played together in the center's garden. The future is going to be amazing. Big Shaq put his large blue hand on her shoulder. And it all began because you were brave enough to ask for help, he said with a smile that made his purple eyes sparkle. He-Jin nodded, feeling truly happy. Sometimes the biggest changes in the universe started with the smallest acts of courage.